welcome back. This video has been done in so many pieces over such a long period of time. We've gone through the transition. We were AM with the coffee, now we've had lunch, we've had a little break outside, and why I'm nattering without doing anything is I'm waiting for my glasses to change because they're black at the moment and I can't see properly, and they will slowly lighten as they get used to the indoors. But yeah, we've gone through the transition of AM to PM. We're now in the afternoon, so cheers Terry. That's a little in thing. Right, now this plant needs some sorting because it's got old bits that I don't want to keep and some canes that I don't want to keep, but I don't want to go mad because in amongst those older roots, which is why I haven't trimmed them, are the newer roots, and if I trim them I'm going to lose some of those new roots. Now where I would like to cut it is there, but that's not going to be easy. Let's see what we can do. What I want to do is get rid of this older part of the plant. It's got two leads, this plant. It's got a lead out here and a lead here, and I want to get tight to that lead if I can. That will remove quite a lot of the older roots and a piece of the plant that I don't want, and I'd end up trimming the canes off anyway. So I'm just going to cut in through there and see what comes off. That's not bad. That's about where I want it to be. Because what I want to do is get most of this plant hanging downwards. The couple of new canes that I grew last year, one's on this plant and one's on the other plant, so as long as I keep both of those. See, that cane is still green, so's that one, and so's that one. But these two, you can see, they're going. So the ones that are sticking up serve no purpose. Now if I cut the plant in two, I could get rid of those specifically by cutting the back of the plant off, but I don't want to cut the plant in two. It's joined by a rhizome, so I'm just going to take those two canes off at the base. And that's a much better plant to be able to mount now. So that's that one done. Let's get out of the way and have a look at this one. Now again, that's my cane. That's dead. So's that. That one's got a little kiki or a bud. And that one's still green. So I'm going to break that plant at that point. And take those two old canes and that back end of the plant off, which has no live roots. Now as always I check my rhizomes when I cut them, but I've yet to find a dendrobium that's been infected, and I hope I never do, but I suppose it's possible. But they're less susceptible, they're quite vigorous growers, and it seems that the vigorous growers are less susceptible. Now a few old roots left on there is not a big deal because it's going to be mounted. Any that just pull off I will, but I'm not going mad because I don't want to damage the new roots that I've got. And that's what you end up doing sometimes, trying to get the old roots out. Now that's actually fallen into two. Is it worth mounting that? That's the bit with the flipping kiki on. So that must have been more than one plant, or it wouldn't have fallen apart like that. See, that's going to make a nice looking plant with three growths, one at the top and one on each side, by mounting it like that. That base of that bit of rhizome is not good. Oh well, maybe blooms next year then. There's no point in mounting that, no live roots, it'll get in the way. I want to mount it like that. There's still some bits of old bark on there, but they're attached to new roots. They're staying. It's not worth the effort of trying to get them off and damaging new roots. This isn't a strong plant, hoping it will be after it's remounted and sorted out. Ugh. But it isn't at the moment, so I don't want to lose any of the roots that I've got. Okay, I'm reusing an old mount, a nice gnarly bit, so it's been completely sterilised. Hydrogen peroxide left to soak for a nice long time, then scrubbed up with my toothbrush to get any debris out of the crevices and things, and then had boiling water poured all over it and left to soak in that, and then just run it under the cold tap, because you don't really want to put your plant on a piece of boiling bark, do you? Now, I don't want a huge amount of moss on this. I want some, but I don't want a lot. And I don't want it soaking wet either. So we'll gently squeeze it out. Now, some of these roots are going to go upwards. That's how they lend themselves. So I need some moss above the plant as well as below it. But as I say, I don't want too much. I want to get this to grab hold of this bark and get in there and hold itself. Something about mounted dendrobiums, when they attach well, you know, and the roots really get hold of the mount, they grow better. The plant seems to know that it's got a good hold of something, and it can now push out huge big lush new growth safely without pulling the plant off the branch. Right, that gives me... I'm cheating a little bit here, because if you ever put a plant into a show and the judges realise that it's more than one plant, they count it as cheating, yeah? And you'll get marked down on it. You don't get it disqualified or anything like that, although possibly in some rules you might, but certainly the sort of place where this might end up, that wouldn't be the case. But you will lose marks for trying to cheat the judges into thinking you've got a large specimen plant when in actual fact you've put 3 or 4 in the same pot. That's not the game. Right, that's about it. I don't want any more than that. Some moss on top of the roots, but not completely covering them. The air can get in there. Some roots hanging in the air, and some with just the tiniest layer of moss underneath them. Now, if that will just stay there, dry my hands, we can get that tied on. I'm getting tired now, so the Alyssii might not get done today. We'll see how we go. Right, try and do this in one piece. Makes life easier if you don't have to tie a piece off and start another piece, and it just gets fiddly. It's much easier to get one piece and waste a bit if necessary. Ugh, itchy nose. Alright, let's get everything I don't need out of the flipping way. Okay, I always start with a slip knot, which is just a knot round a loop. There's nothing more than that. You can see that's the knot being tied around the loop. That's all it is. And it just allows the loop to move within the knot and get bigger and get smaller. That's why I do it. And it also gives me an end to tie to when I've finally finished wrapping round and strapping the thing in place. Now, to get this on without the whole thing falling off, I'm going to start my loop at the top end, not the bottom end. I normally come up from the bottom, but not always. It just depends on the plant and the shape of it and where I want to grab hold of it, so that I can let go with this left hand that currently is holding the plant in place. That would be my third hand if I had one, but I've only got the 2. And then that slip knot allows that to pull quite tight and hold while I start wrapping round. That's now got the plant. That's always my idea of my very first loop, is to hold the plant so that I can now move. And that's got those top roots with that loop. Oh, canes all over the place here. Now I'm going to go through the middle of the plant to hold that section in place, which means I've got to try and I'll just poke it through. It'll be easier in the long run, and pull it out the other side rather than trying to thread it up through the canes. Okay, and that holds the centre part of the plant at the point where I cut those canes off. So that's not cutting into anything that's even remotely important, and I reckon I can get away with one more loop underneath everything. There. and that will hold those few bottom roots in place. And then check. Yep, as it's two plants, all the plant bits need checking. Yep, that's nice and firm. So that's my last loop now. Now we turn it over. I always turn it over slightly on its side. The reason being, I'm not squashing any new growths now, and I've got far too much end here, so that's coming off. And then the other thing that I've learnt by experience, by starting with that slip knot, that's that bit, yeah? And then taking my first loop off to a thing, I get a V. And now if I thread my end through that V, I can pull on it. Otherwise I'm just trying to tie a knot in thin air. Now I'm tying a knot against a knot, a fixed point. That's if it will go in there, of course. More wine. Actually less wine. You see what I mean? Now I've got something to pull against. Yeah? That just draws everything in nice and tight. And then to actually tie a knot with fishing line, I always do a reef knot because it holds, which is just basically right over left, left over right. You just use the same end to tie the knot. So that's that bit done. Get me label on while I'm in a place to be able to do it. Now if I put that under there, over there and under there, and it should stay where it's flipping well put and not start waggling around. That's my theory. And through the hole. And again, I've always got two ends to tie the label on. So same again, right over left, left over right, and that will hold. It bites. There we go. Loose ends off and in the bin, not on the floor where the cats can get at them. And that's that one done. Got one long droopy cane on it, which potentially could throw a bud. So there we go, that's it, mounted. These three new growths, this one's pointing out sideways and may well come right out here as it grows. These two are already pointing downwards, they will continue to grow downwards. Next year when the new growths come, they may well point upwards until they get long enough that the weight pulls them down. It's a naturally pendulous dendrobium, and it's a funny one because it comes into a similar category to most of the other soft cane dendrobiums, but this one's different. This one, after the rainy season, it goes into the drier period, but it comes from a place where it doesn't really get that dry for quite a long time because of the heavy moisture and the type of trees and the undergrowth and everything. So it stays quite moist, and right at the very end of the drier season, before the rains start, it gets quite dry at that point. But what it doesn't get is cold. It's not one of those where the temperature drops dramatically in that dry season. So I was resting this one up in the cold bedroom along with the others till I found that out, and that it came straight back down in the grow room for the rest of its resting period. So yes, it had its water reduced in its equivalent of the dry season, but what it didn't get was those much lower temperatures. So it stayed in the grow room, and that's how I treat my nobelies. They stay in the grow room. They need a difference between the wet season and the dry season in light and temperature drop, not necessarily freezing cold, and this is one that does not like to get cold. So that's that one done. If I don't do the Alicei, thanks for watching and all that sort of stuff. If I do, I'll be back, but I've got a feeling that's probably it for today now. It's well past lunchtime and I'm running out of steam, and there are more days. If you get to the point where you don't really want to do the next job and you can leave it till tomorrow, that's not a bad idea, is it? You know, because otherwise you start getting a bit, you're not concentrating as much as you should be, and that's about where I am now. And I have still got some things to do in the grow room, so that's probably it for today. I don't always do the Alicei as a separate one if I do decide to do it today. So I'll end that one there. Thanks for watching. Say that's a mixture of things all in one go, And I've been dying to get that one on a mount for a while now, and I think it's going to grow a lot better and happier now it's there. Especially with all those new root tips. You know, they're now in a place where they're not in stale old media with coconut fibre. They're in a place where they can get hold of a mount and get going. So hopefully that one will take off. Now I won't keep that absolutely soaking wet for a few weeks. I'm going to let those roots acclimatise to their new environment. But once I see them actively growing, that goes into the same category as most of my dendrobiums. Water and feed well in the growing season. They all get that without exception. Okay, see you next time then. Thanks for dropping by.